Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. My name is Kelly Crocker and I'm one of the ministers here. Today I'm joined by my colleague, the Reverend Kelly Asprooth-Jackson, and by the worship team of Linda Warren, Drew Collins, Stephen Gregorius, and Daniel Carnes. A very special thank you to Logan Walsh for being our hymn leader this weekend. Thank you, Logan. And a thank you and a welcome to our society choir. It is a joy to have you all with us this morning. And thank you to all those who are volunteering in many roles: greeters, ushers, hospitality providers, lay ministers, and sound technicians. Thank you to all of them. At First Unitarian Society, we question boldly, listen humbly, grow spiritually, act courageously, and love unapologetically. If you're visiting us today, welcome. We're so very glad that you are with us. If you'd like more information about activities and programs, please stop by the welcome table located in the Commons to your right next to the elevator. We also hope that you'll be able to stay and join us for coffee hour immediately following service, also out there in the Commons. And for those of you connecting with us virtually today, welcome to you as well. We're so very glad that you are with us, and we hope that you will be able to watch the announcement slides immediately following today's service to find out more about what's happening here at First Unitarian. And now, I invite you to join me in a moment of silence as we center ourselves, bringing ourselves fully into this time, joining together once again in community. Come, you accidental pilgrims, you who find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come, you who emerge into this place as an act of liberation.
Come, you who seek a lifetime of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come, you who bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken open in revelation, hearts full of love to share. Come, you who seek courage, and you who have more courage than you realize.
Come, you who stand behind the curtain, gathering up the resources to claim your truth. Come, you who have been living in a bubble, you who are poised for transformation.
We begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. We gather as people of all ages, of different abilities, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. We share a covenant, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth.
This path will ask much from us. So let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome to join this journey. And we invite you now to rise in all the ways we do, joining in the words of affirmation as we light our chalice. We tender this flame, opening the book, turning to a page yet to be written, opening a story yet to be told. May we fill this fresh page wisely. May we write a new story into being. May we together inscribe the page with hope. And before we join together in song, we invite you to turn and greet those around you.
And now I invite you all to turn to the teal hymnal for hymn number 1020, Wah-Ya-Ya. A little note about pronunciation before we get started. It looks like wo-ya-ya to us English-speaking people, but the phrase comes from a dialect in Ghana. It means we are going, and it's pronounced wah-ya-ya with a kind of an open O sound, like the vowel in thought. So, wah-ya-ya, try it out. Great, good grades, all right. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know with Him, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know with Him. It will be hard, we know, when the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wah-ya-ya, 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 wah-ya-ya. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know with Him, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Wah-ya-ya, wah-ya-ya, wah-ya-ya,
Well, I'd like to invite forward now anyone who wants to come up and join me for a story this morning. Hello. Good morning. Come on down. Hi there. Hi. Thanks for being here. So, a lot of the time, when I bring a story to tell during this time, it takes place like a long time ago, right? Or some sense of being a long time ago. Yes. Okay. Oh. Okay, so you have that. Well, I would actually like to hear that story another time. So maybe we could talk after the service. I would love that. So a lot of the stories that I tell, they take place sort of in like a mythic time, like a kind of a made-up time, but it seems like it's a long time ago. So this is a story that definitely is taking place in sort of a magical or mythical or imaginary time for reasons you are about to see. But also, it can't really be a long time ago because there are Legos in the story. And there's a certain timeline on that. They've only been around for so long. So here is my story for you. To begin with, we need a main character, and I don't have a name for this main character. Does anyone want to volunteer one? Yes. Gigi. Okay, so Gigi, our main character, had a big model made out of Legos. Now, this model wasn't of one particular thing. It wasn't like, some people in my life, they really like the Star Wars Legos, or the Legos that look like flowers, or the Legos that have, yeah, I like flowers too, yeah. But this wasn't just one thing, right? It wasn't a model of one particular thing. This was a model of Gigi's entire life. The whole of their life. From the very beginning, right? From the very start, when they were born, when they lost their first tooth, when they graduated from middle school, when they got turned down for a car loan, all the way to when they lost their last tooth, right? Just the whole stretch of their life. So it was a pretty big model because it had like a little room or a little window space for every single moment of their whole life. So it was huge. It was so big. And it had all the things that had already happened in Gigi's life, but it also had all the things that hadn't happened yet. And so whenever they were uncertain about what to do next, or whenever they felt like they had a problem they couldn't solve easily, or sometimes when they were just really curious, they would go to the model and they would look, like, okay, so what's going on today in this model? And they would see, okay, I'm wearing the orange sweater and some red slacks, and that would tell them what clothes to put on in the morning. And they would sort of go from there. They would just follow whatever the model told them to do. Now, because this was such an important tool for their life, it was so integral, so vital, so necessary to the way that they lived their life, they wanted to take it with them wherever they went. So they got like a wagon, right? And they would pull the model along behind them on the wagon. And it was a little bit inconvenient, as you can imagine, right? It's a big structure made out of Legos. It's hard to haul that around everywhere, but they were committed to it. What's the other problem about a really big something or other made out of Legos? Can you think of a problem with that? Yes.
It's made out of Lego, so someone can step on it.
So two problems with Legos. One, when you step on them, they hurt your feet. Solid gold reasoning. Can't argue with that one. But we're going to focus instead on problem number 2. It could break. Yes. Especially anything, like you have 2 Legos together, it's actually pretty hard to get them apart. But when you have 15 million Legos together, oh boy, it is easy to break that structure in one way or another. And that is what happened one day. Gigi was pulling the cart down the street behind them, and there was a bump in the road, things got rocked, the whole thing shifted, turned over, fell on the ground, and smash. So, well, that was very upsetting to Gigi, right? This is the whole basis of how they lived their life. So their whole life literally scattered onto the ground. And all the pieces are there, but not exactly in the right arrangement anymore. So they just sat down on the curb and they were just looking at it like, what am I going to do now? Very sad, very despondent, very demoralized. But the good news is that along came some other people who were, just walking along down the street. And they saw, first of all, they saw all the Legos, which they had to be careful of because they hurt if you walk on them. So that's a good point, again. They saw all the Legos, but they also saw Gigi just looking so upset, so unhappy, so sad. And they asked Gigi, well, what's wrong? What's going on? And Gigi explained, this was a model of the whole of my life from the very beginning to the very end. And I loved it, and I needed it, and I used it, and now it's all over the ground. And the folks said, okay, well, what if we help you pick the pieces back up again? And Gigi was not certain about this, but it was good to have some help, at least, to not just be sitting there on the curb. And so they, one at a time, 2 at a time, 5 at a time, they picked up the pieces of Legos. They started to build something again. Gigi did their best to remember the stuff that happened before and try to get that kind of right, at least the general outline of it. But for the stuff that hadn't happened yet, well, they had to make something new up. And it wasn't what it was before, presumably, but at least now they had some sense like, okay, well, I think that would be a pretty good time to apply to art school, and I think that would be a pretty good time to take a trip to Morocco, just got an outline going, And so by the end, they had a model of their life. Not the same one, maybe not one they were going to follow as closely necessarily, but they had it, again, with the help of the folks from the street. And now they didn't just have that, but they had a new set of friends that they had made from those folks that had helped them out. So, here is my question for you at the end of this story. Why do you think I told you this story? I don't know. Why do I do anything, really? Grown-ups are inscrutable. Yes. To make friends. Well, I think that's a great thing. It's a good goal in life to make friends, and a good way, potentially, to make friends is to pay attention to other people around you and see who might need help, maybe need a friend. People who need friends are often good candidates to make friends with? Yes.
The story is about the people giving someone else empathy.
The story is about some people giving someone else empathy. I like that a lot. I think that giving empathy to other people is a really good thing to do, and stuff that we could use more of in the world, to be honest with you. Yes. What is empathy? Empathy means that when someone else is feeling big feelings, you feel some of what they're feeling. You have a sense like, oh, that person is sad, that person is angry, that person is happy, that person is afraid. Empathy is being able to sense and to share in the feelings of other people around you. And then you can help them, you can care about them, you can be interested in them, right? It can make you compassionate towards them. Here's one more thing that maybe is why I told you, who knows why I do the things that I do, but maybe is why I told you this story. When your life seems to make less sense than it did a moment before, something breaks, something changes, something needs to be made anew out of things that are broken, it helps to have other people to help you do it, doesn't it? Thank you for listening to my story, and now we're going to sing you to your classes.
Now please rise in body and or in spirit and join us in the gray hymnal for hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Our inspiration today comes from Angela Herrera. This is what 100 years look like. A rounded, wrinkled back, sparkling wet and soapy above the shower bench, and my hand, having gently formed in your 70th year, has emerged with lifelines, bent toward blessing, scrubbing, circles across your soft white skin. I drag the cloth beneath your arms, silently blessing each bend and crease of breasts and belly, whose curves were determined in the womb of my great, great grandmother. When you are dry and warm, 100 mantras of gratitude sweep over my heart that I am the one standing in the frosted light, rubbing wisps of fragrant talcum into each sweet fold. Tomorrow I return to Boston, and you'll keep on in your chair by the picture window, looking down at Seattle. You are too old to tell your stories now and have all but ceased speaking. Your thank you, honeys, like gems at a silent retreat. But the stories have become me, the lifelines that led to my lifelines. And your name was mine long before I was dreamed and was born. For now, there's no reason to talk. I adorn you with perfume and color, powder, lipstick, rouge. We get out the pearls. Looking down at your toenails with a fresh coat of glittery red, you erupt in laughter. Will you have to take it off? All day I kiss you as often as I can without making you suspicious that I am saying goodbye. Knowing that when you are gone, I will rise a generation. And as storylines are lifelines, I too shall pass them on.
Some years ago, I was at a gathering of Unitarian Universalist religious leaders. The whole group of us were up just a little bit past our normal bedtimes, and someone, possessed momentarily by the mischievous spirit of the hour, suggested that we should play a game that is popular, or maybe I should say used to be popular, what do I know these days, among Unitarian Universalist youth. This game is a storytelling and get-to-know-you exercise called Two Truths and a Lie. Works like this. Each participant states 3 facts about themselves. Obviously, the more strange, unexpected, or entertaining, the better. 2 of these facts should be true, and 1 of them should be false. The group then has a chance to guess which of the 3 stories is made up before the lie is revealed by the person who told it. Now, I had played this game before in my high school days, and then later when I was a high school youth group counselor at another congregation. But when one of my colleagues suggested that we should play it, at first I demurred, explaining that in order to play the game properly, I would need to have at least 2 facts about myself that were interesting enough to be mistaken for lies. That's a high standard when you think about it. But eventually, in the spirit of fun and making new friends, I relented, and so here are the 3 facts about myself that I gave at that time, so far as I can recall. 2 of them are true, and 1 of them is not. So once, while briefly visiting Italy for a wedding, the only time that I have been to Italy, I got stranded there. I showed up at the airport ready to leave and hoping to get back in time for work the next day, and was told that not only had the flight been canceled, but the entire flight route no longer existed. If I wanted to get back to the United States, I literally could not get there from here. As far as the airline staff were concerned, just informing me of this change once I had shown up at the airport in person fulfilled the entirety of their responsibilities to me as a customer. But eventually, there was an arrangement made by which I could get home a day late if I could get to another airport in another city, in another part of the country on my own. That is story number 1. Story number 2 takes place while I was living in Oakland, California. They have a public transit system there called the BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, that covers many of the cities on and near San Francisco Bay. Once, while riding the BART late at night, I fell asleep and I missed my stop. When I woke up, I recognized the problem. I got off at the next station, and I switched trains, and I fell asleep again. The second time, I was more anxious than when I switched those trains the first time, and so when I chose yet another train to get back home, I chose poorly. And I ended up riding the very last train to the end of the line and ended up having to spend the night at a 24-hour coffee shop in San Jose. The third story is from my early childhood, when I was in a play group with some other children whose mothers would get together during the day at each other's houses or sometimes on outings. One summer, we took an outing to a park that had a fish hatchery in it. They had all these pools with just hundreds and thousands of fish all wriggling together in them. Now, it was long enough ago that my memory could be faulty, but as I recall, there were absolutely no ropes or guardrails or other barriers around those pools. And my evidence for this is that I fell into one of them. Luckily, I was a strong enough swimmer to push my way through all of those fish back to the surface and get scooped up almost immediately by my mother, who was very, very upset. So there you have it, 3 short, colorful stories from my past. Just a little bit of flavor, the sort of thing to help give some new acquaintances a slightly better sense of who I am. Except, of course, that now you don't really have any new information about who I am, because one of the stories that I just told you is a lie. Even if you're very confident in your guess as to which one it is, you do not know for sure, and until you do, the 2 true stories cannot tell you anything. As Unitarian Universalists, we are devoted to the ongoing search for truth. While some folks may profess that their truth can be reduced to the contents of a single book or the substance of a narrow creed, our faith is far, far more expansive than that. For we hold that revelation is not sealed, that wisdom and insight into the deep meaning of life may be found in every moment, potentially in any book, and most certainly in every heart. As a people who quest for the truth, and who have, in certain places and times, been persecuted for that quest by people who were offended that their own truths did not satisfy us, we have a deeply personal interest in the freedom of ideas and in the veracity of information. We have a duty to the free flow of facts, to the practice of telling the truth to ourselves and to each other, and not to lie or dissemble or otherwise to hide the truth from others. Now, the basic value to speak truthfully and not to lie is very popular among the world's religions. It is hardly unique to us. In Buddhism, for example, for a statement to qualify as something that is permissible to speak, right, before you even open your mouth, it must meet several different qualifications, and one of these is that it should always be true. One of the 10 commandments in the Hebrew Bible is, of course, thou shalt not bear false witness. In the Greek Testaments, the first Christian community began to pool all of its resources and to hold all of its property in common, following the teachings of that notorious socialist, Jesus of Nazareth. But 2 members of the community, Ananias and Sapphira, attempted to hide some of the money that they gained by selling their property. And when this deception was revealed, both of them fell down dead. This scriptural episode is presumably not one favored by certain secretive corners of the international banking system. Now, Islam requires its adherents to tell the truth, but makes a few very specific exceptions. One of these cases, where it is appropriate to lie, especially about what someone did or did not say is when it will help to make peace, particularly to make peace between two people who are married to each other. There is also a practice called taqiyya from the Shia branch of Islam. Taqiyya involves lying, but very specifically about your own religious beliefs, and then only in order to protect your own life or the life of another person. Taqiyya points to the sad fact that simply to tell the truth about who you are, what you believe, whom you love, where you were born, or whom you know yourself to be, can be life-threateningly dangerous in the context of oppression. So while truth is a noble cause and an end in and of itself, it should be a thing that gives life rather than taking it away. Yet, the truth is also something worth risking life for. There is a story in the Shia tradition that cuts right to this. The divide between the Sunni and the Shia branches of Islam stems from a series of disagreements over leadership of the Muslim community following the death of the Prophet Muhammad. 1,300 years ago or so, the Sunni Caliph Yazid claimed authority over all Muslims and their territories, but the Shia refused to follow Yazid. They were led instead by Hussein, the grandson of Muhammad. Yazid eventually lured Hussein and his followers into an ambush at a place called Karbala, which is in what is now Iraq. Hussein and many others were killed there, and the yearly mourning for this loss of life is one of the major observances in Shia Islam. Hussein died, but his sister Zainab survived the battle and along with many others was taken captive. She was taken to the court of Yazid, the man who had ordered her brother's death, and facing him, under the threat that she herself would be killed, she told the story of the Battle of Karbala, refusing to be intimidated into keeping silent or into painting her captor in a somehow more positive light. She told the truth, even though it was embarrassing to the government that she was subject to. Centuries later, in a different government in a different place and time had a different truth that it found to be embarrassing. The New York Times had just begun publishing excerpts of a historical study that had originally been commissioned by the US government. It was an analysis of the conflict in Vietnam from the Truman through the Johnson administrations. It was embarrassing because it showed that several presidents and their cabinet staff had actively lied to the American public about the war, how it was going, what tactics were being employed, what they hoped to accomplish by fighting it, what it was exactly that members of the US Armed Forces and the South Vietnamese military were being asked to give their lives for. That document, which came to be called the Pentagon Papers, was officially secret. It had been leaked to the New York Times by a man who had been involved in writing it and felt that he had a duty to share it with the public. Because of the document's secrecy, the Nixon administration was able to get a court order barring the New York Times from publishing any more fragments of it. Temporarily blocked in the press, that whistleblower, Daniel Ellsberg, looked for an ally in Congress and eventually found one in Senator Mike Gravel, who entered the entire contents of the Pentagon Papers, all 47 volumes, into the congressional record. Other newspapers began to print excerpts. More court cases began as the government tried to stop the flow of information. Senator Gravel and his staff sought a publisher for the whole document, and one by one, 35 separate publishing houses turned them down. Nearly everyone who had touched the Pentagon Papers up to that point had wound up in court, and there was a good chance that they'd all be going directly from there to jail. No profit-minded publisher would take them. So, in a final act of desperation, they turned to the Unitarians. Beacon Press, the publishing arm of the Unitarian Universalist Association, was the only publisher who would handle the Pentagon Papers while the threat of lawsuits and felony arrests still hung over them. At a time when it was dangerous to print secrets the U.S. government found embarrassing, our association chose to do just that. From a legal and a financial perspective, it was a total loss. Years in court followed. And Beacon Press's bottom line was still suffering for many years after that. But because we have a loyalty to the truth, which runs deeper than the goal of worldly success, and even weighs against our own sense of self-preservation, the leadership of our association knew that it was the right thing to do. Because a lie, uncontested, unanswered, unchallenged, can be a powerful and a dangerous force. This is especially true the bigger the lie grows. Any large body of people can do great harm once misled, either by truly being taken in by a deception or by agreeing to believe whatever seems to be in their own self-interest to believe. When the truth becomes unpopular, when telling it and insisting upon it comes with consequences, it can be a scary thing to cling to. But especially in such times, holding to what is true becomes the most important thing that we can do. I know that in our subjective age, when plain facts, eyewitness testimony, and unambiguous recordings are routinely dismissed as fake news, we can get demoralized and even suffer some uncertainty about what the standard of truth ought to be. So let me offer you this first principle. You are the highest and best authority on your own true self. People can and will judge you for your actions, and you cannot control what they will or will not think of you. Sometimes they may misjudge you, other times you may misjudge yourself, but what you know about the essence of who you are is sacrosanct. From there, what is observable and what is measurable must be contended with. There are those who might pretend it away, where such facts are inconvenient. Do not let yourself fall into that seductive trap. But after your own deep self-knowledge and the shared and so verifiable experience of the world that we inhabit, there comes the last level of the stories that we tell ourselves and each other about this world we share. There are always many of these in circulation at any given time, competing for our attention and our acceptance. But there is, from my perspective at least, one simple way of sorting the biggest stories of meaning about humanity, about the universe, about the world we inhabit. And this is determined by one simple question. Is the moral of this story pushing me towards hope or towards fear? Fear will make it easier to hate, easier to discard, easier to ignore, easier to do violence. Hope will draw me into the messy work of relationship and into practices of compassion. It is my belief and my assessment of our shared religious tradition, as exemplified in episodes such as the publication of the Pentagon Papers, that those stories whose moral is hope contain a fundamental sort of truth in a way that the stories whose moral is fear cannot. Now, as I close, I should resolve one particular set of stories. You may recall my 3 anecdotes from earlier about being trapped in Italy by a nefarious airline, being lost on the Bay Area's subway, and falling into a fish pit, I don't know what you call them, at the fish hatchery. Well, I really did actually get stuck in Florence, and I had to make my way to Milan for a flight home. I spent that night in a hotel in a very distant suburb of the city, and that happens to have been the night that the Italian national football team won the World Cup. I did not get much sleep. And I really did fall into a pool at the fish hatchery, an episode that I am sure still must live on as a cautionary example in some of those playgroup families about the importance of starting your children on swimming lessons at the earliest possible age. But I never did get so lost on the BART that I had to spend the night in San Jose. I would have had to be very lost indeed. You see, the trains do not run to San Jose. My friends, may you be fearlessly truthful. Not because there is nothing to fear, but because even when powerful forces rise on the power of a lie, whether we are speaking of the era when Hussein and his followers were killed, or the era when the war in Vietnam was waged, or any other time, hope is still the better choice. It is still, in some sense, true in a way that fear can never be.
Thank you. We invite you now into a time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering, which sustains the work of this community and also the work of our outreach offering recipient, who this week is Voces de la Frontera, a membership-based community organization led by low-wage workers, immigrants, and youth, whose mission is to protect and expand civil rights and workers' rights through leadership development, community organizing, and empowerment. There's multiple ways to share your gifts. Baskets being passed here in the room. You can see on the screen that you can donate directly from our website, and you'll see the text to give information there as well. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together. We gather together each week, bringing with us the joys and the losses of our days. We share them here, knowing they are held in care and support and in love. We light a candle of grief and gratitude for the life of Bobby Zahner, who passed away Monday evening. Bobby was a bright light in our days, and we miss her brilliant smile, her sparkling wit, and her infectious laughter. A celebration of Bobby's joyful life is being planned for the spring. We send our love to her darling Larry and to all who are missing Bobby today. And we light a candle of remembrance for the too short life of Patrick, who passed 2 years ago today, for his young daughters and their mother, a niece of one of our members. And we light a candle for all those joys and sorrows, hopes and dreams that remain unspoken in the silence of our hearts. If you will turn with us now in an attitude of meditation and prayer to these words from Bob Janice Dillon. Eternal Spirit of life and love, O God, we come together in your presence today, grateful to be a part of the great story. What a magnificent story it is. From the whirling of the stars to the evolution of humanity, from the achievements of nations to family life around the table. There is much in our world to astound us, disturb us, and bring us peace. We are part of a story much too large and complicated for us to fully understand. We appreciate that, but we also know that you have given us reason to know our portion. We have within us a great striving for fairness, a thirst for justice. We feel it in our bones when something is wrong, and we have lodged in our memory the dream of the right. We don't know how this story will end, though we live aware that our own individual story will end. But we know we have a chance, while we are here, to serve beauty and dignity and truth and basic kindness. Into this great story, into this great tapestry of natural beauty and human endeavor, we can weave in threads of good deeds. Help us, O Spirit, to move this story along and to jolt it every day towards love. Amen.
Now please rise in body and or in spirit and join us in the gray hymnal for hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
May the stories we tell name the largest truths of what was, of what is, and pull us forward to what should be, as stories were always meant to do. Blessed be, go in peace, and please be seated for the postlude.